You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Welcome all to our podcast, Cards to the Moon. My name is Clark, and I'm joined with my co-hosts, Hyung and John, for episode 21. Now, off the top, I'm going to throw it to you, Hyung, because you got a couple of PSA subs back for some monster cards. Do you mind sharing which cards you just got graded from PSA?
So, yeah, I ended up sending a couple, couple of bigger pulls that we talked about before. I think one was the Anthony Volpe Refractor Auto, and then the Wander Franco Orange Auto that I pulled in that Bowman draft.
That was huge.
Yeah, so we ended up doing a high-end, kind of like a submission, and I got a couple buddies to kind of throw in some cards as well. We sent, I think, a Lamar Flawless Auto, a DeAndre Hunter Gold Optic Auto, numbered to 10.
Wow. And
a Justin Herbert Red Wave Auto, his Prism, right? So there's some big cards.
For sure.
And we kind of, footed the bill, $150 a pop, which obviously isn't cheap, but we also kind of decided which card kind of made the cut, right?
Yeah.
So took a very, very close look at least mine. My buddies, they kind of did their own thing. Mm-hmm. And I was a little concerned, to be honest, because, if you look at the pop reports, it shows you the odds are kind of against you, at least the cards I submitted. So the Volpe Refractor ended up 10-10ing, as well as my Wander Franco, which was huge.
Crazy.
Yeah, so we did an auto grade. And the crazy thing was we submitted it October 6th.
Yeah.
So PSA received it October 6th. And today, I guess, is the 19th.
Yeah.
So you're talking 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's
right.
Quick.
2 weeks, and now they're shipping it back, right? So there you have it. Like it's a different service. Once I guess more money is involved. I shouldn't say that, but like
it's true.
I mean, it's different. It's a different game, right? Like I don't know. We had some success, I guess, in our group sub that we did a while back. Those were the kind of like the cheaper, submission rates, right. And I feel like they were a little tougher on the more expensive cards at that price point. But I feel we ended up getting 3 out of 5 cards in this sub that we went PSA direct for the $150 kind of express level, and 3 out of 5, which is 60%. Isn't too bad considering, one was a flawless, which is almost impossible to kind of, gem with PSA, right? So
that's the Lamar Jackson flawless.
The Lamar Jackson, yeah. My buddy Matthew, he had it raw, and believe it or not, like we had to crack it obviously out of the flawless case, the one touch, and he hasn't ever done it before, and we noticed there was a. It was like a residue. It's probably from Lamar Jackson himself, but it was like stuck on the surface for probably the last.
Game used pizza.
Yeah, exactly when he's signing, right? So, yeah. So I believe the surface kind of was not ruined, but like obviously, it didn't gem, but it did 9-10,
nice.
And then. The DeAndre Hunter Gold Optic Auto out of 10 ended up gemming. It was a 10-10, wow, so that's a huge card. And then, the Herbert Red Wave, there was some surface, I think, issues going into it, so it was an outside chance out of 10. It ended up coming back a 9.
Okay.
So 3 out of 5 is not bad. I think overall pretty successful.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's amazing.
And more... shockingly was the turnaround time, right? Where it might be under 3 weeks door to door, and this is in Canada, right? And we also expressed it next day to ship it out, and I think it ended up being about $1,000 No upcharge, $1,000 Canadian, which would be probably right now around $750 to $800 US.
Right.
And if you think about it, like it's totally like to scale. Nothing is out of the ordinary. Where I think, if you have cards that are worth it, PSA, it's still open, it's still a great service. They're still grading, and those cards end up becoming pretty big. I think that Volpe is a pot 4 with the auto graded as well. So.
Damn.
Yeah, that was kind of like the good news. I guess it happened today, which I'm grateful for, and yeah,
That's awesome, man. You didn't ship your Bobby Witt? I know you pulled that too, right?
Oh right, yeah. So that was in question. Like, what should I send, right? Because I had a few cards that. Like the Bobby Witt refractor, the Bowman Chrome, huge card. I think raw goes for like $1,200. I think John was saying maybe the 1010 of the refractor sold for $5,500. But yeah, there was the Bobby Witt Jr. I pulled would look so perfect, like centering, surface looked great, corners look sharp, and at the back, bottom edge, it's a little lifted. Okay. And I know for a fact that I will not get a 10 at PSA. I 100% know that. Yeah. And for me, it's like, is it worth spending, like, after shipping and everything, almost $200 at best to get a 9, at least in that card, right? It's different when you're talking about, like, a RPA or a rookie auto, like a Lamar Jackson Flawless, where, the pop is low enough, right? But for me, the big factor was the edge. I knew that, what's the point of spending, a couple hundred? I'd rather send it actually to SGC in this case for outside chance at a 9.5, 10. Right. And it probably sells better than a PSA 9 anyways. It might not, but I don't want to take that risk. And where I could get it slabbed and sell it for a reasonable price, because otherwise the card is pretty flawless, right? So I'm hoping that I could get a little more out of that SGC move without paying as much. I'd rather pay the $30 for sure. And we're good to go. And if it ends up 9-10ing, I'm okay with it. It's I didn't dump too much money into it. And that's how I kind of, I guess, filtered out kind of what cards I sent. And how much I want to kind of spend, where I kind of see it. And I evaluate my own cards, and I think everybody should. It's pretty basic. Like every card company like BGS or anybody that displays their subgrades pretty much lays it out for us, right? So at the end of the day, the grades are there. Check the edges, the corners, the surface, and the centering. Those are your 4 things. Do your homework. You should be able to, get your results. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, man. Congrats on those subs.
Thank you. Yeah. Golf on you.
Okay, let's move on to this week's hobby headlines. Hyung, you brought up to our attention this week a little controversy posted by Card Porn on Instagram about an allegedly fake Michael Jordan card that got slabbed by HGA. Do you guys hear that story?
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Crazy.
Like it was basically a card that was graded by HGA that was deemed fake, correct?
That's right. Yeah, that's to my understanding.
Sorry, it was graded by HGA and given a grade, but people are saying the card is fake.
That's what I believe to be the details. And if you dig into it deeper, I think Card Porn mentioned that it was previously slabbed by BGS, and I think they gave it a non-authenticated grade. I'm not quite sure about the details, but it seemed like it was a fake. And then whoever got it resubmitted to HGA, and it got a grade of 9.5. And they're trying to sell it off through a consignor or through, I can't remember how they're selling it, but it's controversial, obviously, because they're being called out on trying to sell a monster fake card. So the bigger question is, do you think grading companies should automatically authenticate whether the card is real, as well as giving it a grade based on the condition of the card? Or do we automatically assume that? What do you guys think?
I think we automatically assume that. I think you kind of
of course.
have to. It's kind of scary that if were we sending it in under the assumption that it wasn't getting authenticated, right? So just thinking of that is like, is that even a question? Right. But I think that's what people think. But I think going back, Clark, I think you said, I think HGA ended up grading it a 9.0, not a 9.5.
Okay.
But I think what happened was BGS actually graded the card a while back, and they actually graded it a 9. And then I believe there were some issues of like the authenticity. And when Beckett got the slab back in February 2020 to see if it was real or fake, because it was in a BGS 9 slab, I believe that's when they deemed that it was a fake.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
so that's where that kind of story. So the owner basically, I think, took that slab and then basically took it to HGA, and HGA graded a 9 as well. But the funny thing is, the subgrades were on point. both companies. It was both.
So they graded
2.9.5s. Yeah. So they graded it correctly. Okay. So that gives you some assurance
that there's some standard in grading. Okay. But the authentication piece is crucial, right? Like,
absolutely. Man. That's scary.
Yeah.
100%. These companies have to authenticate. Like, that is a part of the grading process. I know it's. Some people say it's assumed, and it costs these companies a lot of money to get people that are good or are experts in authentication. But that is that's step one to like the integrity of the company of grading. If you can't do that, you lose all credibility. So I feel bad for HGA. Like, people are really, like crapping on them, and they're taking a bit of a hit on social media. And, they're a newer company, and this guy knew what he was doing. He was taking their vulnerability as a newer company, probably knew or had suspicion that they may not have some of the major experts on staff, and he took advantage of the situation, right? So, or allegedly, like, we don't know all the facts, but yeah.
I guess that's one of the things about the hobby growing so fast, right? With all these different players coming into the game, or in this case, grading companies,
right?
And they're realizing that they have to really invest in things like authentication, and even if it hurts the bottom line at the beginning, like, it's all about credibility at the end of the day. If you lose it, then no one's going to come to you for your business, right? So
absolutely.
I think PSA is the only one. I could be mistaken, but PSA has a policy that if you have a fake, or if they grade a card that's deemed fake later, they'll buy it back. Right. So they have that kind of guarantee to kind of add that kind of credibility to their brand. And I don't know if all the other ones have it, but I feel like all the other companies should do something similar, right? If it isn't in their policy already. So that's one, I guess, way for consumers or collectors to have more confidence in these grading companies, that, if it is a fake, they'll buy it back off you.
Right.
Generally speaking, then, I wanted to ask you, like, is there any tips especially for New York collectors, on how they can avoid getting scammed by potentially buying a fake?
I think, like I go back to saying, like, the resources, like knowledge is king. Like, you have to, if you're gonna drop thousands of dollars on a specific card, you better do your research on it, right? So, and that's where hitting the books, hitting the forums, going under a particular player's like fan page or whatever on a forum, and you guys read about how to spot fakes of certain cards and stuff like that. All the information is out there for us to kind of know what to look for. So I think, but on the flip side, I think nobody's innocent as well. So it's probably something that's gonna, for HGA, it's obviously bad press, but hopefully it's a learning process as well, right? So, but I would say educate yourself in terms of kind of like what you're looking for. I think if you do your due diligence, you should know exactly what to kind of like spot.
Sure.
Yeah. And shout out to these hobbyists, man. I don't know who breaks these stories first, but man,
Seriously, yeah.
nothing gets by these hobbyists, man. They're hardcore. Like I know there's this one a couple of weeks ago, HGA got caught with the Wayne Gretzky fake.
Right.
And then before that, I think, card porn is obviously one of the bigger IG accounts that breaks the story. But we had the LeBron that had the fake patch. Like somebody had surgically removed the patch and put a different one on that had like multicolors on it. So, man, like these hobbyists, they're sharp, man. You can't get nothing by them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like if you have any suspicion of a card that might be fake, especially a high value one, like just reach out to the community. There's someone that might know a story behind that card.
And it seems like fakes are more obviously common in the older cards.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's at least not in the ultra modern kind of like era. So we're talking about like probably 10 plus years. That's where you'll see a lot more,
Right.
Especially like that Trout. Kind of like that Trout era as well. You got to watch it for. I think Bowman Platinums were notorious for some fakes out there and stuff like that. So, yeah, you gotta definitely do your homework and just make sure that you're not, messing with any. But that going back, that's why you want it in a slab, and you entrust kind of like the grading companies to make sure that that's taken care of, right? So
Sure. Well,
and then at that point, do you lose faith in those grading companies, right?
Yeah. Well, going back to Mike Trout, which you mentioned briefly, there was a red refractor of the 2009 Bowman Chrome Mike Trout auto that wasn't slabbed. It was a raw, right?
Yeah.
And it's listed on eBay. I think it's going to end in 5 or 6 days. So by the time this airs, the card will be sold on auction. I sent it to you guys because Heroes for Sale actually on Instagram DM'd me asking if I thought it was legit. And I always check the seller information first, right? To see that they have good ratings. And he has a 100% positive rating. So that seems legit. But I think we all agreed that there's a lot of questions to be asked. Like, why didn't this person get this monster card graded, which will be going for over $1 million? It should go over for $1 million if it's real.
Yeah.
Right.
And then go through like an auction house. I think, John, you brought that point up, right? Like, why go through Joe Schmo on
Like
eBay?
a local consigner on eBay.
Right. So, yeah, like if I saw that card, I don't know how much confidence I would have to bid on a card like that. A red refractor 2009 Mike Trout Bowman Chrome first auto.
Yeah, like I mean, we're talking holy grail. Mike Trout showed up out of the blue on eBay from a random. I think it looked like they're kind of consigner. I'm not sure, but like the eBay account checks out. Like it's a legit account. They look like a great seller, but it's one of those, like, I don't know, I think it might be too good to be true. It's really strange that whoever has that monster card wouldn't think to, unless it's somebody that has been out of the hobby for 15 years or whatever, or 12, what's the math on 2009, like 12 years. And they just had that sitting in a garage, and they don't know much about what's going on with the hobby. They just heard that the Mike Trout is worth a lot of money, and he went to his local card shop and said, "Hey, can you sell this for me?" Like, it could.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I mean that it could happen.
Come on.
Yeah, so I don't know, man.
Yeah, no, that's a tough one. For me, it's like it. Yeah, on a raw card, yeah, that there's so many red flags.
Right.
Like, and all the points you guys raised is exactly those red flags, and it's tough to, I guess, at least for me, especially a raw card, you just don't know, right? And even though the seller might be a great seller, he might not know, right? And until someone that can authenticate it, and I think the bids are already in the 5 figures, obviously, right now. So people are bidding on this item, which is crazy.
You know what? Breaking news. I just checked the listing. This item is no longer available.
We should have had an over-under, right? The over-under was like...
I think I mentioned before, show, I'm like, it's going to be delisted before the auction ends. And sure
there
enough.
you go.
So that's another rule. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. And
right.
There we go.
Tread carefully.
No, seriously.
But yeah, I mean, this is a good, interesting topic because as more people get into the hobby and as you see a lot of these really high-end cards, there's going to be some bad actors in the game, unfortunately. And hopefully the hobby community can look out for each other. I think that's the one good thing about the hobby, that I've seen the community kind of get together and call out the people that are trying to sell these fakes online or in any other platform.
Right.
All right, so we haven't done our next segment in a while, so I thought we can bring it back today. It's called Fast 5. So for first-time listeners, this is where I'll go through 5 names of athletes, and you tell me if you're buying, selling, or holding their cards. All right? So the first 3 I chose are basketball players, and they seem to be on many sports writers' lists of top breakout candidates. Okay, so I want to get your opinion on whether you're buying, selling, or holding these cards. So the first one is our Canadian homeboy from the New York Knicks, RJ Barrett. Do you think he's going to have a monster third season in the league? Which means you're buying now? Or vice versa, do you think he'll be overshadowed by the likes of Kemba Walker, who they got in the offseason, or Julius Randle, or even Derrick Rose?
I think for me, RJ Barrett, like based on his prices, I think he's worth kind of like that risk where I think he's a buy, at least for me. I think the kind of like the hype died down with 2019 with Zion and Ja. RJ was kind of a chase as well, and Kobe White. I think his prices has kind of deflated, so I think it's going to be a big year for him and New York, and we'll see. But I think RJ Barrett's a buy for me.
Okay.
I like RJ, but you'll be surprised at what I'm about to say. I'm going to say hold. And I'm not quite confident that RJ is going to break out yet. Like from what I watched last year, even in the playoffs, I just didn't see it yet. So I'm going to say hold. I mentioned before on like one of our like 1v1 hot takes about the New York Knicks winning the whole thing. I think the Knicks have a legitimate chance of making some noise in the playoffs. So for me, if you were to buy RJ this year, I don't really see a big breakout, but he could be a good buy heading into the postseason, and maybe he makes some noise this postseason. And I think that'll carry on hype towards next year, and perhaps we might see some kind of breakout next year. But yeah, I'm going to say hold for now. I don't know. I'm not quite there to see a breakout yet. I'm not too confident.
Okay. I thought just because he was Canadian, you would just say buy automatically.
I knew you guys would say that.
For me, he's a buy too. He's a buy for me because of his prices, just like Hyung said. Like if you look at his Panini Select Light Blue Prism, it's I think $300-$400, like PSA 10. I could be wrong. It might have gone up, or I might have looked at BGS, but regardless, it was pretty cheap compared to other players in his draft class, like Zion and Ja, of course, right? And I think if, like you said, John, if the Knicks can make it into the playoffs and do relatively well, I think those prices will go up. Like I don't think you have to wait till next season for those prices to break out for RJ. And I think he'll be a key player. You know, those other guys on the team, they'll take more touches, but I'm more confident that RJ Barrett will stay healthy over those older guys too. So I think he'll still have his share of touches and he'll play. So RJ Barrett, I think based on his prices right now and the potential for the Knicks and a big market team like the Knicks to really make noise in the playoffs, I think that's a good recipe for investing in RJ. So I'm buying. All right, second on the list is from our home team, Toronto Raptors, OG Anunoby. John, I know you brought him up last week as a player to watch, so why don't you start first, since we probably can guess your answer.
Yep. OG is a buy. I think with Siakam injured, he's about to have a big year. I like OG. And I also say that because OG is turning into a pretty strong fantasy player. So in the fantasy circles, OG is getting pretty well known as sort of like in that top 40, top 50 range. And I think that's a good tip for a lot of viewers too, is if you're getting into basketball or football, a good suggestion or tip is actually get into fantasy. Try to join a league in fantasy, because card values, I mean, this is all supply and demand, but really it comes down to human behavior. And what you see happening in fantasy, there's almost a direct correlation to what happens in card prices. So if you learn fantasy really well and you learn the emotional aspect of chasing hype and chasing potential, it's very similar, man, especially in like dynasty or what you call keeper fantasy leagues. Like any of those keeper leagues, like people will overpay for LaMelo. They'll overpay for first round pick Cade Cunningham. Everybody is, selling cheap on RJ. They don't see like the high potential ceiling. People are buying on OG. Like you'll see the same sort of trends of why card values are going up and down. So I would say it's a very good tip. Like the human, I'm going off topic, but OG is has turned into a huge fantasy asset. And I think that is directly kind of correlating into some of the hype and behavior in purchasing. So, I'm personally a fan. I think OG is about to have a big year with Siakam injured. So it's a good opportunity to buy.
Cool. No, I like that advice about fantasy, linking fantasy to card values. Yeah, good. It's often very true.
Mm-hmm.
For me, you know what? I'm totally off OG, to be honest. It's just not like I get the kind of, I guess, the appeal and upside, but for me, I think he's just gonna. I don't want to say I don't see the superstar potential in him where it's gonna really fluctuate that price, right? So I want that superstar status kind of type player. Like I would say RJ Barrett has that. That's why I would be a buy on him. So I know he's it's a great local market in Toronto, and there's a lot of collectors in Toronto as well. So there is the value of having the liquidity and kind of like a big fan base here in Toronto. But I'm a sell on OG.
Okay. Looks like Hyung and I are on the same page so far. I'm a sell as well. I don't think the Raptors get enough respect in the hobby. I don't know if it's because we're the only Canadian team. And, when I was following the hobby over the last 3 years, I was looking at Siakam prices. And, Siakam prices aren't...
No love, yeah.
No love. To use Hyung's favorite word, there's no volatility in Siakam prices. And that's when Siakam was an all-star, right? Like he was a stud. And if OG steps into Siakam's spot, like I don't know if anything would change in that regard in terms of hobby prices. So yeah, I'm a sell. Unfortunately, I think OG's a great player. I love his personality, but I feel like it's only Toronto fans that can really appreciate OG.
Well, you guys remember Siakam prices like post championship, right? I think when all of Canada was buying, like, dude, like Siakam optic hollows and silvers, like they were in like the 15 to 2, like you couldn't find them for cheap. I think even his Prism base was like $800-900. Like it was in that Jokic stratosphere. It was nuts, man. It's obviously come down huge because he's really disappointed the fan base, but I don't know, man. I think you guys are underestimating the fan base. Like we're talking about all of Canada. Like when I scour the internet, because like I'll admit I always kind of search for PC Raptors pieces, and comparatively to what OG is truly versus the real market, like he hasn't really accomplished much. He doesn't put up monster stats, and his card prices are similar to like a lot of decent players. And if you look at Fred VanVleet, like he's sort of like your, like Toronto people love him, but he's your run of the mill sort of point guard. But his cards are fairly expensive too. They should be worth nothing if we were being really honest. But I think that Canadian market, like we're talking Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, East, West, like Midwest, like everybody loves the Raptors, and I think that upholds Toronto card prices. And I don't know. I try to buy some personal pieces, and it's tough, man. They're really expensive.
I hope I'm wrong. but yeah, no, it's an interesting debate, but we'll see. All right, we'll move on to our third Fast Five player, and that's Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. of the Memphis Grizzlies. If you didn't hear, he just signed a 4-year, $105 million rookie contract extension. So obviously the Grizzlies believe in him. The question is, do you guys believe in him? Do you think his ceiling will be high, especially playing alongside another stud, Ja Morant?
You know what? I really, really like the marriage of card prices and Jaren Jackson Jr. I think he's a great buy. I think there's a lot of opportunity for him to grow, especially. I think it's going to be a big year. I think he's going to, I think personally he's going to drop 20 plus a game this year. And, he's going to really show, I think, his talent. And I think it's a big year with him and Ja. I think they're going to do some damage here this year. So I think based on his prices, I think you get numbered prisms for still under, $800, $700. And for me, it's, that from that 2018 year is that, he got undershadowed a lot and as well. So for me, yeah, he's definitely a buy, no doubt. I think there's huge opportunity for sure, even short term and long term.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to agree. Triple J is a buy. I think just like RJ, his card prices are dirt cheap. I generally like. I like that Triple J he was highly regarded when he first came in 2018. There was a lot of hype surrounding him, and he just unfortunately got injury after injury. And I like the prospect of a player that had big hype, and the hype is gone, but the hype is gone because he just hasn't had a chance to prove himself. I would rather invest in a guy like Triple J that hasn't yet had a chance to prove himself, rather than somebody who did have a chance to prove himself and didn't do anything with it, and then the card prices came down, and we're hoping for like a, kind of like a Lonzo Ball situation where you're hoping that he kind of comes back to relevance. I like Triple J because I think a lot of people still have eyes on this kid in the hobby too, and it's only going to take like a month, like if he puts up strong numbers in 1 month, I think his card will really rocket. So short term. And let me go back to like we're talking like RJ and OG. Like for myself, it would be all short term. I think in season, max maybe the next 1 or 2 seasons. But I think Jaren Jackson in season, he's a great buy. I could see it going up big time.
Yeah, I see all your points. I think he's a hold for me. I actually want to see him really reach that potential that everyone was expecting, like you said, when he was drafted 4th overall in 2018, and he hasn't quite shown it. And then I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be 1A 1B on the Grizzlies. I think Ja Morant, you're still your number one player, and
for sure
he'll take he'll overshadow Triple J to a certain extent. So I think there is a lower ceiling for him while he's at Memphis. So
agreed.
He could definitely. I love players like that too, John, where they had that pedigree, that top prospect pedigree.
Exactly.
And, they can, turn it on at any point if everything breaks right. Their health, the playing opportunity, and all those things, right? So I don't doubt that he can reach those heights, but been waiting for a while now, so I kind of want to see it a little bit and be a little bit late to the party, then invest early and hope for the best this season. Yeah, so I'm a hold. Yeah,
I like these players because the hype are like little embers that are almost burning away in the ashes. Like it will just take one spark for it to blow up. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, I'm going to switch gears to football now. And believe it or not, we are in week 7 of the NFL season as of this taping. So we've seen some of these rookie QBs play in action. And the first one I want to bring up, of course, is Trevor Lawrence. The hype, right, was unreal heading into the season, but I think it died down a bit with the reality of playing for a bad team like the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they're 1-5 at the moment. They did win the first game.
They did win.
Yeah. In the UK, they had to win. They had to go abroad to win. But
and Tua's prices tanked.
Oh man, I know people that love Tua going into the season, and doesn't look too good right now. But
he was a huge bounce back pick for a lot of people.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. But how about T-Law? Are you investing in Trevor Lawrence? If you had the opportunity to do so.
For me, it's tough. Like, yeah, it's either a sell or hold for me, because if I already bought into the hype, like I don't think like quitting is. I think a hold is still, viable. I guess it's still. I guess there's opportunity. You can't lose unless you don't sell, right? So in one of those situations where, it'll be interesting to see him bounce back from the adversity and see if he could take a struggling Jacksonville team into somewhat of a positive direction, right? It's not every day you get called on, with this task, right? So it's gonna make or break him, in my opinion, and I'm excited to see the challenge. But for me, I don't think investing him right now is a smart move, just because I think prices are inflated with that hype baked in, right?
Yeah.
So
yep, easy one for me. It's a sell as well. Prices have come down quite a bit because of his losing streak and the fact that he's not really tearing up the league right now. I think prices are going to continue to go down. So that's why I say sell, get out while you can. And I think sometime next season or preseason next year, I think that could be a good time to buy, or in two, like after another season, I don't know, but I would sell now. And I think there's going to be opportunities later on in the next 6 to 12 months to get back in. Because I predict it just continually going down.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, this one's tough because, yeah, his prices are still rather high for what he's accomplished on the field.
Right.
It's obviously still the hype factor, what he did in college. But I guess I'm in the same boat as Hyung. If you bought into the hype, you don't want to lose that money. And it's interesting you say that you think the prices are going to go down even further, John.
Yeah.
But I guess if you have the high end cards, you rather hold. I think those can still hold relative value just on the potential breakout next season or the season after even. Like, I don't think people are going to give up on Trevor Lawrence soon, right? Like, he has a longer leash, I believe, than the other rookie QBs. So I think I'm a hold as well. But yeah, I mean, we all went in knowing the Jacksonville Jaguars is going to be a bad team. So maybe they have to start building around him with their next couple draft picks, right? So
yeah, this one, like Trevor Lawrence, is an interesting one because I agree with you guys. I if I'm wearing sort of like the more long-term collector mindset or long-term investor, I'm absolutely a hold too. I agree with you guys there. But I was just wearing my sort of my flipper mindset. And if you're a flipper, I think it's best to get out now because I think prices are going to go lower and it's going to be a good opportunity to get back in. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a good buy at some point. He seems like he's going to be like one of the elite quarterbacks in the league. So, yeah, hold or sell.
Hot take. Jacksonville wins the next 5 games, and his price is just absolutely skyrocket.
Oh, that's a good one, man.
Well, I was going to ask you guys over under 4 wins for Jacksonville.
Oh,
under. You guys know it's under.
I don't know enough about football to definitively say, but from what I'm hearing, Jacksonville sounds like they're horrible, so it's probably an under.
I'm going to be optimistic and say over. I want to see this.
Okay.
I want to see this. I kind of want to see what happens to card prices if he does. All of a sudden, put a four
touchdown game, and he just kills it.
Back to back. Next week he has a solid game. It's like, and see people's behavior.
Right.
Sure. I could definitely see it spike. So it'll be something to watch. All right. To round up the Fast 5 segment, then, I'm going to throw out Mac Jones of the New England Patriots. He's been actually okay, but nothing spectacular. Do you think he can still grow, especially under Belichick's leadership, and become a top-tier QB in the league one day?
Up for debate. I don't know. You're in the big time seat though. You're in New England. You got to perform, right? So this is his show, and right now it's been tough for Mac Jones. I think for me, he's a sell personally. And I think it's a tough one. Before the season, I think it would have been a little different, but for me, right now, I'm a sell on Mac Jones. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, same. I'm gonna say sell. I say sell because I think we're heading into sort of that mid-season lull in football and football pricing. So no matter how on fire or not you are, I think we're gonna start to see card prices start to simmer. So whatever flame is left in any hype that was surrounding Mac Jones, I think it'd be good to try to get out while you can. And in terms of future, I really don't know. I'm kind of torn about Patriots and Patriots quarterbacks. We had people who are so high on, everyone's high on the next Brady. They just think like whoever's in that seat is going to be the next Brady. Sorry, they're not going to be the next Brady. Yeah, Jared Stidham or whoever it was, and then now Mac Jones. I don't have confidence, so I'm not sure how I feel about getting back into it, but whatever flames left, sell.
I'm going to say a hold. I like that. Obviously, the Patriots are known to make decisions quickly. Like, they're not loyal to any player,
right?
Other than Brady, of course. But they tried Cam Newton, it just didn't work out, and they cut him. And maybe they will do the same for Mac Jones. But giving him that starting job right from the start, I think he does have a longer leash. And I like the upside play of Jones. If he does put it together, being the guy in New England, he won't be the next Brady, but he'll get certainly a lot of attention in, around the league and within fans, and collectors will know who Mac Jones is if he plays well under Belichick and with a strong fan base like the Patriots, right? So I like that upside, but I'm saying hold. I looked at some of his prices. It does seem a little bit high to get into him right now. So that's why I'm not saying a buy. But if you have him, I would hold. I would just hope for the best in terms of them turning their season even around. If they went above 500, I think that's a win for Mac Jones. So
that's true,
and that's a possibility for him.
Fair.
Cool. All right, I like that Fast Five segment. A lot of interesting viewpoints. Zero sweeps, but we'll see how all of these players do. Especially, I like to see the basketball players, which one of these actually will break out this season. All right, then let's finish the show with our weekly segment called Pick One. And this week, it's our regular edition, meaning we're just throwing out two athletes or sports cards or card sets, and then we debate which one we'd rather invest in. All right, so who wants to lead off? Pick one this week.
I'll throw mine out there.
Okay.
This is always a question that I go back and forth, and just me personally, because I believe both are relatively cheap or affordable. I think both are underrated in my opinion, and they're both young stars that have great potential, and it's Yordan Alvarez of the Houston Astros.
Yep.
Versus Bichette of the Toronto Blue Jays. And I'm in my 1v1. I want to ask you guys, in terms of an off-season investment, if there was a player that somebody was like, okay, I'm looking to invest, who should I invest in, Yordan or Bo? What's your guys' answer?
Oh, man. I have written down Bo for a lot of the obvious reasons, us being in Toronto and local trade. But I'm going to switch to Yordan. And
oh wow, okay.
Hyung saying right now that sort of like he added that little tidbit about like what's your off-season plan on these two guys. That made me change my plan. And I think Bo, I love Bo. I think we all love Bo. He's already one of the top shortstops in the game. His numbers were amazing this year, and it's just going to continue to grow as both him and Vladdy continue to tear up the league, both offensively and then for Bo defensively. I like how he's that dual, and that makes me struggle about Yordan because he's sort of very singular, right? It's sort of like home run and hitting or bust. But I believe in Yordan Alvarez. I think his hitting is elite. I see it. And in terms of off-season, where to spend your money, there are still a lot of sort of, obviously Bow base, chrome and paper, you can get into it super cheap. But if you're going to try to get into like a nice Bo Bichette, it's still costly. And for you to get into like a really nice Yordan Alvarez, it's pretty affordable, man. And I think that is the bet in terms of investment. I'm going to change it to Yordan. I think that's the better play because I think their upsides are both really good. And Yordan's bigger cards, like the ones that can really go to the moon, they're just so much cheaper than Bo Bichette. So I'm gonna change it to Yordan Alvarez.
Nice.
Okay.
What about you, Clark?
John almost made me change my mind again, but I should go first next time. But I'm sticking with my first choice, and it's Bo Bichette. I think it's a difference between a 4-tool player and a 5-tool player. Bichette's got that speed. His fielding is getting better every day or every season. I'm sure he'll definitely work on that, and I know he's a disciplined, hard worker. So because of that, I think the upside is even higher for Bichette. And even though you're right, the investment into Bichette is higher than it is to Alvarez at the moment, I think the it could like 3 or 4x rather than 2-3x for Yordan. Like I think they're both good investments, but I think the higher upside play is there for Bichette. And I think also because Vladdy had such a amazing season, even with Bichette's amazing stats this year, he was overshadowed. Like I think people will be surprised if you look at Bichette's stats. Like they're like, oh, what? Like he had over 100 runs, over 100 RBIs, almost 30 homers, and 25 steals. Like
and top 5 in hits, or he was
290.
pretty close to the top in hits, right?
Yeah, exactly, and over a 298 batting average. Like that is elite numbers. And if Vladdy didn't have the season he had, we'd be talking about Bichette right now, and his prices deserve to be a lot higher than it is right now, I think.
Yep.
So Bichette.
Nice. Huh. This is interesting.
Yeah.
Tiebreaker.
Because my heart says Bichette, my mind says Alvarez, right? It's like, what do you follow, right? Do you follow your logic or your emotion? Like for me, like what's killing me is Yordan's prices. It's like it's such a good value for what you're getting, and I think Yordan, if you look at his 162 game average, it is above elite. It is, we're talking, Juan Soto territory, but a different type of hitter than Juan Soto because Yordan's like power is incredible. His ability to hit, not only for average but power. I think Soto's gonna have him beat in terms of obviously being the better pure hitter, but Alvarez's power, he's gonna hit 40, 50 home runs a freaking season. I think. And that's what he's averaging in if he stays healthy, right? So that's the type of player I see in Yordan. But you're right, he's lacking. That's his downfall is kind of like, well, where is he going to play? Is he serviceable even in the outfield, or is he just a future first baseman, right? Or is he an all-time DH, right? Given his, depending on if he could stay healthy. But like I said, his prices are so cheap, and his next couple years could make him, one of the greatest hitters in the game for the next future, right? So, I believe based on his prices, that's why my head's telling me, Yordan's a great buy, right? But me, deep down inside, Bo Bichette, like that, like for me, it's like. The long if we're talking long term investment, I gotta go Bo Bichette. I just think that long term, it's a tough one. Like I said, I own both. It's always a battle because I want to buy more Yordan because he's so cheap, but then I'm like, okay, I like my pop one Bichettes that I do have, so it's like I always want to add to that as well, right? So it's always do I spend money on Yordan or just forget about him as a whole and go Bo Bichette, right? So, But yeah, I'm gonna go with my heart as always. Bo Bichette for me. And I think I have a lot easier crowd to liquidate too, if I ever need to. Right, just having that option is a win-win for me. So yeah,
Nice.
Cool.
Sweet,
Good one. You got me with that Yordan Alvarez, Hyung. Finally, you got me off a Toronto player.
Hey, it's a great investment. I still think Yordan's a buy though. Like there's no doubt that Yordan's a buy in my opinion.
Yeah.
Still,
I think so too. I'll go next, actually, John. Just because mine is also like a off-season investment,
Sure.
just like Hyung's was. So it's baseball, and I asked this question in one of our earlier episodes, kind of generic between these two players, but I'm going to choose two very specific cards. The first one is the 2016 Fernando Tatis Jr. Bowman Chrome rookie card auto. Okay, just base in terms of price value, versus the 2017 Ronald Acuna Bowman Chrome first rookie card auto. And just to give you some context, the latest sales for Tatis was about just over 3,000 for a BGS 9.5 10 auto, and for Ronald Acuna it was just above 2,000. All right, so a little more for Tatis, that's to be expected, but with Acuna being injured, not playing in the playoffs right now, maybe that's why his prices are a bit cheaper. So yeah, what are you going with? We just talked about value over like which player you really love, but
right?
It'll be interesting to hear you guys.
Same.
Yeah,
Go for it, John.
I have a little bit more bias towards Tatis. Personally, I like Tatis better. I'm going to pick Tatis, and it's more because I think both of these guys are going to be absolute, and they already are absolute superstars in the league. I'm starting to get a little concerned about Acuna's like long-term health. He keeps running into some of these like bigger injuries. I know Tatis had an injury and it's more to do with his shoulder, but Acuna keeps running into these sort of like knee injuries, which is starting to worry me a little bit in terms of his longevity. So if I'm really going to put in $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 into one of these guys' Bowman first autos, first of all, I liked Tatis, but second of all, I think it's just a safe, in terms of the two big superstars, I feel like Tatis is a little bit safer. I get Acuna's a lot cheaper, and I'll agree. I think it's a really good buy. But yeah, it concerns me a little bit, so I'm going to pick Tatis.
okay. I never knew John was a doctor, but whatever. Tatis' shoulder injury was less serious than Acuna's knee injury. Okay.
The sound is salty, Clark.
You guys already know my answer, but go ahead, Hyung.
For me, yeah, this is a tough one because this is a real life situation for me because I always ask myself if I had one, it's usually, throw Soto in the mix too, right? Yeah. I go back and forth always, but to me, something about Tatis' Chicago White Sox uniform picture just doesn't do it for me, and I just get so angry at that photo. The collector in me, it's such a terrible pick, right? Same with that Soto first Bowman Chrome. Like, come on, fine. And I remember, Clark, you posted the Zion. This is a sidetrack. The Zion, the 2020 throwback Zion Prism.
Yeah.
And it's like the worst picture. Panini, like, do they have like a vendetta for like Zion or like
he looks like he weighs 350 pounds.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's
incredible.
Like a fridge.
Yeah, man. Like, come on, mix in a little feel, right? Or unless it was intentional.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I feel with the Tatis. But like I said, I will say that held me back from purchasing Tatis Bowman Chromes in the past for very cheap because I use that same excuse. But then when you realize, what prices, happen, you kind of forget about those things, right? Sure. But I think the biggest thing is Acuna's injury has made his prices obviously fall. And in conjunction with the off season, I think here's the thing. I know a lot of Acuna fans. Like, there's so many Acuna fans that truly believe in Acuna, and they would never sell their Acunas. they would just hold it regardless. Through this whole time, they're not selling it. So I think prices are very stable, even though, his injury of this magnitude for Acuna is huge, right? So a lot of people have the question of longevity and stuff like that, but you're talking about the holy grail, right? Like, I think 2017, for the price you're paying, I think Acuna is just the better deal. And in terms of investment, it's just like, if I could get in, the same kind of status card of that, Bowman Chrome iconic first auto of one of the players for cheaper, I would take the cheaper one, just because I feel like the ceilings are unlimited on those things. And you see it with Trout, right? You see, what a first Chrome of Trout goes for. And you kind of could draw the parallels with that. So for me, based on those 2 points, the price and the weak image, I'm gonna go 2017. I do like Acuna's image too. For some reason, I think it's just, and his signature. He friggin' signs it like Acuna, most incredible like autographs on the Bowman first Chromes, and then after that, it's just like he didn't care for signing any cards. You know what I mean? It's like on his first Chrome. Check it out. It's a beautiful auto as well. But you see a huge difference in terms of his current auto. So I think the overall appeal on the 2017 wins for me, and that's the deciding factor.
That would make sense once these guys turn pro, and they get like Panini or Topps or whoever sends them like 300,000 cards to sign. They're gonna change their autograph, man. Like right, LaMelo, like you see LaMelo's, I guess when he was in Australia, his autograph is like this like long, huge winded autograph, and his new one is like whatever it is, like LM. He's just like thank.
You see that? Yeah. You see that? They get lazy and they're like, what did I think Anthony Volpe is one of them too. It's so funny. It's like he shortened it.
Yeah.
So true. Okay. So yeah, you probably know where I'm going. I'm going with Acuna, better value. The ceiling, I think, is very similar to both players. Yeah. So obviously, if I think that, I'm going with the one that's a better value. And the Braves are going to be a good team next year too. Like, look what they're doing without Acuna. I think the Braves are just going to just build up on this season, and I wouldn't be surprised if they easily make the playoffs next year. And if Acuna could stay healthy, then then you'll definitely start seeing prices go up. And San Diego, like, what a disappointing season, right? Like everyone picked them to be in the postseason, and they were stacked, but a lot, injuries, pitching injuries decimated them, right? So you can't control that. But I love Tatis, and you know what? It's funny that you mentioned his image in this first Bowman Chrome, Hyung. Like, it's pretty weak, and that's why I'm looking at like Topps Chrome rookie autos for Tatis when he's actually in the Padres uniform. I prefer those. It's cheaper too, right? And but those are on card autos as well. So
the colors are
beauty.
Unbelievable.
It's a beauty, for sure. All right, John, what's your 1v1 this week?
All right, so I got a trading card question. Next big investment. Are you going Marvel or are you going golf? And I provide some context. Obviously, people are kind of heavy on Marvel, and then that's sort of like the up and coming in that sort of trading card Pokemon space. But golf has that Netflix documentary series coming, right? That's made by the same guys who made F1, and we all saw what happened to F1. So which of the two are you picking as like a next big non-major sports investment?
Marvel versus golf.
Marvel versus golf.
Man,
that's a hard one.
For me, I was a big Marvel collector actually. I remember 1995, 1994, like the red foil, the red foil.
The red foil. Oh yeah, I remember those 20, ones. That's right.
2099 or some weird year, like the futuristic. Like I was a huge Marvel fan, and I see the value actually, and it's crazy. It's like I would think that I would never say this, but like I see tremendous fun in something like Marvel. Very nostalgic, a lot of nostalgia. I think a lot of value because of color, what people are looking for. I think there's a lot of alternatives, such as, I think part of the reason why I liked it as a kid was when you do get the special hit, it was the red foil. So like, I think they could do a lot with Marvel. This is where I don't know so much about golf in terms of the game, but right now all I could think of is like Tiger Woods or Phil Mickelson or whoever you're gonna invest in their rookie cards. I don't see golf unless they come up with like a fun way to rip again, because it was always kind of like Upper Deck, SP, just basic rookie, and then numbered cards, and then it wasn't like the big hits where, like it is today, right? So
Right.
It depends on, for me, where golf goes as a hobby. Is it going to get parallels? Can I pull a Tiger Woods kaboom? Or can I, something like crazy like that, right? Or like a parallel where it becomes like desirable as a whole collective, right? So for me, it's golf has a lot to grow, in my opinion. And I think with the hype of Marvel, I really like kind of like the upside that even ripping, I would be so down to rip Marvel, and I think it would be so much fun, bring back so much memories. And I think it's kind of like a timeless thing for us in our generation, in our society. So I think there's a tremendous room to grow as well in that field. Obviously it's a new field, but when you compare it to golf, I'm going to go actually Marvel for me.
Yeah, this is really tough. Like, I go back and forth because I see the growth potential in both. Like,
Right.
for all the reasons Hyung just mentioned, but I guess I'm gonna go with more of my personal experience. Like, I grew up not reading comic books, so and also I still don't play golf like you guys do, right? So I'm fairly objective when it comes to just Marvel versus golf, but my friends and people I've known for a while are all getting into golf. I feel like the sport of golf is actually growing. Like, I'm seeing it personally, and people are asking me like, "Oh, you should, asking me, you should try golf. Like, yeah, this is a fun sport and activity to do together." I don't know if it's a function of our age. A lot of us are getting older, and it's a nice
golf and
sport.
Card shows, man. That's
go
like
hand in hand,
the
right?
life.
Yeah.
That's the life. Golf and card shows. If I went to Vegas, golf and card shows. Sorry, go on.
Shout out to Terry who's living that life right now. But golf and card shows. But yeah, I just see golf can when it explodes, like all these alternative sports, like we talked about tennis before. I think it's just a matter of time for the hobby to do its thing. Like you mentioned, Hyung, it's kind of boring rip, but I think it doesn't have to stay that way. If you see the sport growing, you're going to see, on-card autos of these top 10 golf players. I can't even name top 10 right now for you guys. But, like how hard it is to get a licensing deal with them, and then, make those special inserts. Like it's not hard. And I could see, like, in 5-6 years when Fanatics takes over, I think that's going to be something that I'm sure they'll look into, right? I feel like they already have the golf memorabilia sector cornered. Like, they already have that in their wheelhouse. I think it's a natural extension to provide that for cards and just really do a good job with it. I'm going golf over Marvel just because I just see a higher growth potential, I guess, in golf.
Nice. You guys both made good points. I mean, Hyung knows this too. Like, I've been collecting Marvel. I mean, I collected as a kid. I collected from I think the first set was 1990. That's the one that's really hyped right now. 1990 all the way up to 96, whatever the red foil those cards were that had like Carnage and all those characters.
Yeah.
I'm really sad, by the way, that I know I had mountains of 1990 Marvel that I probably just chucked and threw away. Makes me so sad to think about it, but at least I salvaged a couple of holograms and whatnot. But I agree with all your guys' points. I put this one up because I personally battle with it. I think both have great, huge potential. But in the short term, and by short term, I mean in the next 1 to 3 years, I don't see anything that will help ignite Marvel. I think Marvel will continue to grow on its own, sort of organically. But unless all of these talking heads and all these big influencers just out of nowhere start going Marvel, 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 and it explodes out of nowhere, I don't see anything that could help ignite it. Whereas golf, that Netflix documentary come out, is certainly going to help ignite it to another level, whether it ends up, really taking golf to another level or not. At least something is there ahead of us in the next, whenever it decides to come out. So I like golf as an investment for that reason, because I think you will get that return within the next 1 to 3 years if you decide to, invest in boxes or pick up a whole bunch of Tiger rookies or Bryson DeChambeau's or whoever's really hot right now. I could see that happening with golf. So for my pick, I'm gonna agree with Clark, and I'm gonna go with golf as much as I do love Marvel.
Yeah, that was a good one for sure. I don't know how many times you almost changed my mind for this week's pick one segment, but that just goes to show you how they're definitely good picks. We'll end the show there. Thanks again for all our subscribers and listeners to our podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at Cards to the Moon, all one word, for weekly reminders of what we talked about in our show and some of our hot takes. And if you liked our show, we'd appreciate a 5-star review. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next Tuesday as usual. See you later. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.